The Sciforror Film Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Sciforror Film Podcast. I am Andy Walker and I'm here with my suffering son, Scott. Hello, Scott.
Oh, hello.
All right, try carefully. Poor
No,
Scott.
I yawned then and it did it.
Poor Scott has got a rather bad toothache.
Yeah, I've root canal treatment and it's annoying because I keep clacking my teeth together and then I get
We've got to wait for nearly a week. To get root canal work done.
After having it for almost a week already.
Lots of pain, and we're going to try and get through this without too much.
That me clacking my teeth together too much, which is I've realised is actually a lot harder to do because there's so many words that I end up doing it with.
Just talk slowly. You don't need to rush things.
Right, Amy's been taking a mick at me because where I've been trying so hard not to do it, I've realised that I've started talking with a bit of a lisp.
Well, that's all right. It's okay. Right. Yes. So we're a right state at the moment. I was sitting here without a t-shirt on until a few seconds before we started recording. Suddenly realised I needed to put a t-shirt on. Grabbed the first one next to me, and it's inside out. There you go. These things happen.
So this is going to be the more together podcast that we've ever done.
So this week we are doing 2 short films and a long feature film type thing, mixture of things and all that kind of stuff. So let's get on with it. So you don't have to worry about pain for too long, and I can take this t-shirt off. Yes. So the first short film we are doing is a film from 2022, and it is called Soccer Mom. Hey, this will do. Soccer Mom. Now, because it's American, it's Mom, M-O-M, not like us in the UK, who spell it M-U-M and pronounce it Mum. So there you go, Soccer Mum, anyway. This is through, it's really weird, this, because this is on Dark Matters channel on YouTube, but it's from Higher Universe. Now, we've done stuff from Higher Universe before.
Yeah.
And we've done stuff from Dark Matters, but we did not be the same thing. So the writer and director of this was Brandon Reines. The director of photography was Christian Richman. The cast is Julie Whelan, Hudson Grace Kennedy, Pierce Briggs, Elizabeth Chamberlain, Caitlin Arthurs, Laura Steele, James Smith, and Deanna Harder. The synopsis for this says, the story of your average, all-energy, life-loving MILF with an attitude. Soccer Mom looks deep under the surface and discovers there's more going on under that smile than you might expect. Something dark. Now, I really love this. I think I love the humour in it. I love the effects and the makeup. It looks great. It feels great. I just think it's great all round. It's brilliant.
I do. I agree with you. I think there's certain bits of it that I sat there and I thought to myself, not the same, not as extreme, but like there's certain bits where I'm like, I've heard people say pretty much the same thing.
Now,
I want
to ask you a question, and I want to see if your brain did the same as my brain.
Okay.
When I was watching this, there was more than one occasion when I thought to myself, "Oh my God, that sounds like Becca."
Yeah, this is what I was trying to say. There are a few people, not just Becca. There's a few people that I know that I've sat there and went, "Oh, I've heard that conversation." There's been a couple of times where I've come close to saying certain bits myself, but there are a lot of people that I know that I've sat there and heard them, and I'm like, you could be very close to what this is aimed at.
See, for those of you out there that don't know, Becca is Scott's sister, my daughter, and she has a number of children, and one of them is has been very involved in football for a long time,
Yeah,
and but she takes them all to places and does
yeah.
things, that sort of
There
thing.
are times where I think she could let off steam. Probably not in the extreme way as this person does,
I don't know. I'm not sure.
but yeah,
Wouldn't
it's
surprise me, but
no, but it does make me wonder. Like, it's just I love this film though because of the fact that it's the sort of how smoothly it run. There was no sort of second guessing whether or not it was like it was almost like that whole point of like whether or not it was actually a film or a documentary.
yeah,
The
yeah.
way just how smooth and how confident she was in acting.
It was brilliant. She is really good at playing the part. Really, she played the part
Mm.
really, really well. And it's like the little asides about sort of like, did you know you can't do this?
Yeah,
This is in law. You can't.
it was. It's what I liked about it is the fact that it was that sort of dark tones the whole way through it with things that were said and the things that she was saying and like the odd little gestures. But then it's sort of the darker twist it got to as the end with
Yes.
the whole, oh, I'm just going to go and do some sewing now. And see that and I'm like, okay, this
Yeah,
is,
well, I did wonder where it was going to lead to. I wasn't
yeah, I
sure
did,
quite where it was going to go, but
yeah. I did. I sat there and I thought to myself, it might go sort of, is there to be something sinister about it? But I wasn't quite expecting it like that.
no, no. I must admit it was a bit unexpected to say the least.
Yeah.
But it's really good. It's a really good, well-made thing, and it's really fun to watch, sort of thing. Okay, so the second film, I wasn't sure whether you'd like this or not, to be honest. This is a film from 2018 called Exit Strategy. It's apparently won a few awards and that sort of thing. It was written and directed by Travis Bible. Interesting name. The cinematographer was Rob Senska, and the cast is Christopher O'Shea and Richard Conk. Conk. Right. The synopsis for this is a man in a time loop must work with his brother to prevent a catastrophic fire, which isn't completely
Well, no,
regular,
it's not
but
completely what they're talking about. It's the aim of what they're doing, but
yeah,
you then find out there's a different aim to it. And
yeah. I know you are not normally into time travel films. I've been trying to find ones that maybe deal with it in a way that you might. And I think I really like this. I find it interesting because it is one of the few films I've seen that show a few good films anyway that show like the futility of trying to change the timeline.
yeah,
And basically, story behind this, or the thing behind this story, is that what's important is the time you spend with the people around you.
yeah, there's that mission, that sort of that message behind it, but it's also the fact that, like I said, it's the fact that it's also one of them things that no matter what you do, you can't. It's the way I look at it anyway. It's almost like no matter what you do or what happens, you can't escape death.
No,
Like the fact that he tries so many times and all that to save his brother, and no matter what happens, something happens.
yeah,
And it's one of them things that is sort of the fact that I agree with you. It's the fact that at the end of it, even he says you can't escape it.
yeah,
Can't escape. You can't escape the maze that you're in.
yeah, yeah,
And I think it's just so well done. And the fact that here's that point is the fact that if you create this time loop, you and you want to try and change everything that goes on, you're not going to be able to.
no.
So yeah, like you said, it's enjoying the time that you've got with that person.
One of the things I like about this though is the fact that the way he's traveling in time is never really talked about or explained. So
No,
it's not like you can say, "Oh, that wouldn't work," and well, whatever, because that doesn't really matter. What's how he's doing it is less important than what he's doing.
yeah,
So, and that I quite like that. I like the fact that there's no kind of like long-winded or silly or strange explanation about how he's managing to do it.
Yeah, it's no sort of. It's as I said, there's no real sort of show of it either. All you see is him disappear at one point.
Yeah,
But even that, it's all it's done is talked about the fact that that's what he's doing. It's not shown, and I
no,
like the fact that he's then one of the things is like, oh, that, like I said, another ones is that wouldn't work, or that, but the fact that this is, and the fact that even when he's talked about his watch, all he does is he said he calibrated it to alert him. Not the fact that he's going to tell him when things are happening because it's not going to be the same. But
yeah,
it's just that sort of time spacing that you can do. And I like the fact that yeah, it's just the fact that no matter what, like what he tried to do and everything sort of seemed to be against him.
yeah,
And he sort of then realised at the end that yeah, it is just that time that you spend with the person.
yeah. I really like this. I like it's another one of those ones that we example of a good science fiction film that's based around the personalities of the people rather than it's the personalities and the storyline rather than the tech and the and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I like those sort of films. I find them I quite enjoy
Mm.
um, watching those sort of films. Okay,
I like this one.
yeah,
Obviously, I'm not a big fan of time travel films anyway, as
I
you
know,
pointed
I
out.
know.
But I
As I say,
do
I've
like
been
this one for the fact that it makes that comment of it's futile. You're not going to be able to change the
yes, I
past.
mean, I'm trying to find ones that you might like.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to change the past to make the future better because it's not going to be the future. It's that you
Yeah,
think it is. It's going to be something you just need to not
except
get on with it, but live life for the moment as it is, and not have
yeah,
to think about what could have been.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Okay. Now, the feature film we're doing was chosen by you and Amy,
Yes.
and I was quite surprised actually with this. It's The Ghost Walks from 1934, which is listed as a comedy mystery thriller, but is also in some places listed as a horror uh,
Yeah.
horror thriller. It's you
Yeah,
know
it's one of them ones that depending on where you look at it, depends on like we said, it depends on.
yeah,
We've done a few films like this that depending on who you're talking to, depends on how their class is.
absolutely. So the director of this was Frank R. Strayer. The writer was Charles Belden. He wrote the screenplay. Interestingly, he wrote a short story which was made into three different films.
Okay.
He wrote a short story that was made into a film in The Mystery of the Wax Museum in 1933, House of Wax in 1953, and House of Wax that was made in 2005. They're all based on his original story.
Wow.
So it's quite an interesting sort of
Hmm.
thing. The cast is John Mijan, June Collier, Richard Carl, Henry Colker, Johnny Arthur, Spencer Charles, Donald Kirk, Eve Sutherland. No, try it again. Eve Southerner, Douglas Gerard, Wilson Benge, Jack Shutter, and Harry Strang. Now, as we said last week, I will put links to the films in the to the IMDb page for these films, so you can look up the cast and see what other things they were in, because it's taken us too long to list it all before. So I'll do that. The synopsis. Try it again. The synopsis for this film says, during a stormy night at an old dark mansion, people who claim to see ghosts roaming the halls are later found murdered. Du-du-du, du-du, du-du-du, du-du-du-du, du. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, this is a fairly typical old dark house film. It's a pretty good one, and it's got elements of humour, some light horror, some dark thriller, whatever you want to call it. But they're all balanced out quite well. None of them are overpowering. It's not a kind of a a horror with a little bit of comedy or a little bit of like mystery or thriller. It's not a comedy with a little tiny bit of horror and thriller.
Yeah,
It's kind of well balanced throughout the whole thing,
yeah,
right up to the end, to be honest.
yeah. It's just I understand. I found this film and I picked it and I looked it up and I was like, you know what, this could be interesting because, as I said, we've done a lot of ones from different time spans. We've done a lot from the 50s, and so I thought I would just and this one come up and I thought I don't think we've done one this early like this
No.
early on, but it was just like I don't know. It was just a sort of for me. It was more of an interest in to see how far things have progressed.
Yeah,
There's a few films we've watched which we've done, and it's been they've not really took sort of stood the test of time, or they've not really, or some of them have in certain ways. But I think this just shows the sort of the fact that there are still films like this nowadays.
yeah,
Obviously, there's normally either a bit more horror, a bit more gore, or something like that. But there are still that mix of horror, mystery, sort of thriller things to get now. And I genuinely, there were parts of it I thought were quite funny.
yeah. They were. The thing that got me about this was that I was watching it, and I kind of had to remind myself that a lot of the characters in this are very classic kind of cliches and tropes from horror mystery films, old dark house films, and that sort of thing. But when this film was made, they weren't. They were
No,
contemporary characters. Uh, there were a lot of characters like them in other films like this, but they hadn't actually become cliches yet
yeah,
because of the fact they were get ongoing. It was ongoing. Um, it's interesting. It's an interesting film because of that. That you're seeing the birth of these sort of characters, if you like. I'm not saying this was the first film to have these sort of characters in,
no,
but it's definitely around the time of the birth of the characters that he had in that you have in there. The slightly creepy one, the one who's always you're never sure whether he's on the
yeah,
good guy or the bad guy. The slightly sort of ditzy bloke who hasn't really got a clue what's going on.
yeah.
And
It's one of the things. But I like. I had to keep reminding myself as well because I don't know if you did or not. But there was a guy in it every now and again sounded a lot like Vincent Price,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I had to keep reminding myself that he wasn't in this. But
yeah.
as I
It's
say, it's one of them films that sound like it's definitely when I think if it wasn't for films like this, we wouldn't have got to where we are in horror as much. I think
no,
it's definitely one of the ones that someone gave the opportunity to, and was that stepping stone to open up a lot more for
yeah,
everyone.
definitely, definitely. I'd like to. I mean, I like the idea that the two people turning up think that what's happening is because it starts off with a group of people kind of trying to sell a screenplay or
Yeah,
a play to these guys for them to produce,
yeah,
and they start by playing the characters in the play, and then it all goes completely out the window. But I think it would be interesting to see a modern adaptation of this same story because it's an interesting idea
mm.
that they start off deliberately playing these roles and pretending that somebody's going to be murdered, and then it actually happens, and the two guys that have turned up don't believe that it's not still the play.
Yeah. It's one of they're like they think it's all being played out, and
Yeah,
it's only really until the end that
yeah,
they actually still they carry on believing it until up until the very end.
yeah. But I think one remake could be quite interesting. The
It could be
end,
very interesting.
the end of it, I felt just seemed really hurried.
I was a bit confused as one of them was meant to be dead, and all of a sudden she woke up. But
Yeah,
yeah, it did seem a little bit hurried and a little bit. But
and
it's
there
just
there
one of
was
the it's one of the things as well. It's the fact that it just shows the evolution of what we've got. We've got so used to watching. I've got so used to watching films that are like almost 2 hours long. When
yeah,
this got to like being just over an hour, most of that was credits anyway of
yeah.
it finishing. I was like, is that it? Oh, okay.
The
And it's
thing
sort of
the thing that got me about the end was the fact that it was ended with a really naff joke that was delivered really badly.
yeah.
And you just kind of go, "Ah," and it kind of takes away from the film as a whole because it really kind of spoils what they've built up to.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
definitely one of them moments. I sat there at the end and I was like, could have possibly been done without that bit, but
yeah, yeah. But I enjoyed watching it. I mean, I must admit, I've watched uh, I've watched quite a few science fiction films from this sort of early. I've watched a few horror films this early, but most of them have been the classic sort of like ones, you know, the Universal films, that sort of thing. These sort of films, these B movies, I haven't really watched a lot of from the 30s. So
yeah.
it was interesting to watch, and I enjoyed watching it. It's not a bad film. It's not, you know, there's a lot
No,
to like about it.
it's definitely one of the better quality ones I've seen in that
Yeah,
time period as well. Like for 90 feet, okay, yeah, it was on YouTube and it's a bit darker anyway. A lot of stuff that gets put on there, but for a 1930s film, the quality it loses it a little bit,
yeah.
not not for a massive amount of time.
No, no. I mean, yeah, quality wise, I think for a 1940s film, it was really good. Even the sound quality, which is sometimes breaks up quite
Yeah.
nicely. But no, I enjoyed watching it. I thought it was very good. It was very good. Okay, so there you go. Sucker Mum, Exit Strategy, and The Ghost Walks. Uh, check them out. We as I say, you know, we always put the links up. We'll put IMDb links up as well, so you can check out more information about them. And you know, they're worth a watch. They're worth looking at if you're interested in sort of like watching different things from different times. And it's always interesting to see where things come from and where you know, I say the old dark house things originated from and all that.
Yeah.
So there you go. Next week we'll be back with three other films, two short films and a feature film, all of which are a little bit strange.
Done a lot for the stuff that we watched.
Yeah. We're going Australian next week. The feature film we're doing is an Australian film.
Okay.
Always good for a laugh. Yes, so we'll be doing that. Thank you very much for being part of this, Scott. I know it's not been easy for you.
Yeah, I'm limiting myself to the words that I can say because I'm trying to not mash my teeth together.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I completely understand. Hopefully, you'll be all right for us to do the podcast next week.
As long as it's as long as I'm not too drugged up, I should be all right.
Yeah, well, that'll be interesting to see. Mind you, it might be what might be interesting if you are.
I think I have realised that in the camera, my eyes are my pupils are very smaller than they normally are, so it does look like I'm drugged up enough as it is.
Yeah,
But I promise you, it is just painkillers that I'm taking at the moment.
as I say, yeah. Next week, if you got out your nut on Novocaine, and it'll be good for a laugh.
Novocaine and been facing that a foot out from where it normally is, then this should be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Take the cotton buds out of my mouth so I don't talk like the guy from Godfather.
Godfather. My throat actually. Right. So everybody out there, take it easy. Have a good time till next week, and we will be back then with other films and more nonsense of gibberish and maybe a properly fitted t-shirt and no toothache. Who can tell?
Maybe we're not making any promises.
No, no. Still, there you go. Right. Thank you very much, and see you later. Bye.
Bye.
the Sciforror Film Podcast.